What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Today I'm back on r/best of with a crazy relationship drama story that you're gonna love. As you may have guessed from the title of this one, it involves yet another mother-in-law sticking her dirty nose where it doesn't belong. Without further ado, sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Let's get into this story. My mother-in-law decided to gossip with my daughter about my marriage, blowing a giant hole in my life. My wife cheated on me nearly 10 years ago. I won't get into the specifics as they're unimportant, but due to the fact that I saw blame on both of our parts, I forgave her and we moved past it. My daughter is 16 years old, and she only just found out from my mother-in-law, who seems to have decided that she was old enough to hear the family gossip and that she would be mature enough not to confront her. Initially, my wife thought I had told her and came into my office where I'd been to ask me what the heck I was thinking and if I was trying to destroy their relationship. She and my daughter have been strained for a couple of years now, lots of arguing on both sides. She refused to believe that I hadn't said anything at first until my daughter entered the room and joined in on the screaming that I was too weak and her own mother had sold her out. The fighting went on a long time, and honestly, I may as well have not been there for all the good I did. I tried to step between them when I was concerned, but that only ended with some ringing in my ear. Eventually, my wife left to cool off, and my daughter and I could talk. She wasn't happy with me either, and she didn't hesitate to tell me so, but she wasn't screaming or throwing things anymore, so I just let her get it out. She asked me why I stayed, and I was honest that I was no perfect husband, and I decided not to end my marriage, break up our home, and destroy her childhood for something that I held blame in as well. The entire time I was speaking, she just kept watching me with this sad face that made me uncomfortable. But when I finished, she just shook her head and said that I needed to leave my wife, her mum, and that the cheating wasn't the only issue. She started bringing up every insignificant flaw that my wife has. She brought up my wife getting angry at me because I had put too much creamer in her coffee, for example. Just trivial stuff. I told her as much, but she just kept shaking her head. It ended up turning into an argument where she insisted I was some sort of victim and making some kind of getaway plan. I kept trying to talk her down, but that was going nowhere. I first tried my wife, but I found my call went straight to voicemail, so I called my mother-in-law to inform her of the situation. But my wife had already made it there and planned to stay overnight to calm down because she didn't want to see either of our faces. It's been a few days now and I still haven't seen her or heard from her, but her mother informs me she's okay, just very emotional. So I'm also scared for my wife. She's had mental health struggles before, and if she's going through that again, I should be there to help. A quick edit at the end of this post from OP here, saying, to the people who have commented or private messaged me to say that I shouldn't care, my wife almost died the last time she had an episode, and I don't think even my daughter, as angry as she is right now, wants her mum dead. My daughter told me she hopes her mum never comes back. I'm just feeling defeated and tired. I've done everything I can to keep this family afloat, and somehow I'm still failing. It's beginning to feel like I always do at everything and always will fail at everything as long as I live. All right, let's jump straight into the comments here. I mean, from my perspective, it's pretty clear that this mother-in-law just has ruined everything. I don't know why she's felt the need to get involved, but let's see what the people of Reddit are saying. Somebody said, okay, I've got a few thoughts here. 1, your mother-in-law is completely in the wrong. It's no one's business to fill your daughter in on family gossip that includes her parents. 2, I'm sure that some of this is normal teenage rebellion stuff. However, your wife got angry about too much creamer in the coffee. You say trivial stuff, but how often does she get overly sensitive about trivial stuff? There is a point where it becomes you managing your wife's emotional outbursts instead of your wife working on her own issues. Does your daughter potentially have a point? Yeah, fair question, I suppose. I mean, I don't really agree with that comment, to be honest. I feel like some people do sometimes get angry about trivial stuff. That is being human, and, you know, people in relationships have that sort of dynamic a lot. Like, it's just standard. Especially when you're like, well, my husband should know that you shouldn't put too much creamer in the coffee. Whatever. But OP replied to this saying, I actually 120% agree. I'm slightly in shock that my wife is mad at me and our daughter, but somehow not too angry to stay in the house of the person who told her. I don't know. That part has been messing me up a lot, I think. My daughter's definitely been going through some teenage rebellion stuff, which I haven't minded because it's introduced me to a lot of new music when she's mad. But my wife has had some issue because she's scared when my daughter gets older, she'll regret all the crazy hair or odd clothes. I've been trying to help her with that because I was a little teenage dirtbag myself, and my daughter is a good kid. No real trouble out of her other than being a smart butt sometimes, which she comes by honest. To the rest, I don't know. My wife is temperamental, but she's not violent. I mean, she just gets mad easily. She gets over it pretty fast though. Like, yeah, she yelled about the coffee thing, dumped it out and got a new cup, and it's never come up again. I honestly forgot about it until my daughter brought it up. It really wasn't a big deal. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got from that, but the other stuff I agree with OP. Makes sense. Now here is a proper question. What on earth was your mother-in-law actually thinking to tell that to a kid? She sounds like a miserable jerk who loves to just stir up stuff. I wouldn't even be remotely cordial or polite to her again. It's a great point. What on earth is your mother-in-law trying to gain by doing this? Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, listen, families and people go through things through generations. I understand that. But just because you are a family member of this person, just because it's family, doesn't mean you have to know everything about everyone in your family. Like, some things are best kept private, especially something like this. I mean, I'll ask you guys the question right now, and I'll ask it to myself. Would I want to know if my parents had cheated on each other back in the day? Probably not. OP replied, from what she said, for some reason, she was idiotic enough to think that my daughter would keep it to herself. Which, honestly, I'm glad she didn't, because I know how secrets like that can eat at a kid. And that it was harmless gossip, apparently, because it was so long ago. And I stayed. Like, if I'd forgiven her, somehow my daughter wasn't meant to be affected by it. I've been working on staying calm because she's my only link to my wife right now, and yelling at her is a good way to get blocked and have no sure way of getting updates on her. Somebody else commented, okay, just because someone isn't violent, it doesn't mean that they're not making an emotionally hostile environment for everyone else. And actually, you may need to examine that. Or I anticipate your daughter will want to leave the house as soon as she's able to. My dad remarried a woman with a similar temperament. She was quick to anger, but quick to move on. It honestly felt like an emotional rollercoaster sometimes. Dad loved her, so he looked past this flaw as her partner, chalking it off to just the way she is. But she's a good person. And yeah, that was true. She wasn't a bad person. But he failed to realize her emotional outbursts made us kids feel like the vibe around the house was tense, since small trivial things could make us snap even for just a minute. It just wasn't pleasant to be around at all. OP replied to this saying, well, they were always so close growing up. I mean, I felt like the bonus parent at times because they were so close when she was little. Like, I remember being a bit jealous about it. I'd laugh and think to myself that I thought dads and daughters were supposed to have the special relationship. They only really started fighting when my daughter was 14. I guess I still feel guilty because their first fight was 100% my fault, and I still blame myself for it. Now that same commenter replied saying, really? Their first fight was 100% your fault? Well, that's actually pretty amazing. You managed to force two other people to fight and basically created the difficulties in a mother-daughter relationship all by yourself? It sounds like you're very prone to taking responsibility or blame for other people's actions. This can be a good trait up to a point, but not when it's combined with another person who's emotionally abusive and likes to shift blame for their actions onto someone else, which may describe your wife. Your daughter is telling you your wife is abusive, and she's telling you that the way you make excuses for and accommodate your wife hurts her, makes her feel unprotected by you, disappointed in you, and sad for you. These things can all be true even if your wife is a good person in other ways, and even if she loves your daughter. You've told yourself that accepting your wife's explosive temper is a form of maturity on your part. But for your daughter's sake, and your own, and even your wife's, you may need to ask yourself if what you're really doing is actually being an enabler of abusive behavior. Wow. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it like that, despite previous comments that I've read there, until that third paragraph there. Because this commenter is right. Like, if your daughter is telling you that her mum, your wife, is abusive and like she is doing all these things that are hurting her and damaging the relationship between her and her mum, and yeah, she just isn't a nice person to be around, and she's the one that's saying to you, look, Dad, you can't see this, but I'm telling you right now, like, I don't really feel protected. I feel like you are, a bit of a doormat here and you're letting this sort of happen. Then she is right, because that's her feelings. And yeah, maybe you don't feel it, but as somebody said in the comments a bit higher up, yeah, it can look like maybe you're just joking around, or partner to partner, it's all right because you're used to it, I suppose. But actually for the kids, they're not. And they might feel like, in the house, they have to tread on eggshells around their parents, especially obviously a mother like this. Opie replied to this anyway, saying, I just don't know if I can see it that way. I mean, my mum used to be really abusive when I was young in more ways than one. My daughter doesn't know about that. My mum died before she was born. Don't worry, because I'm sure that your mother-in-law will tell her. Anyway, my wife has never been anything like that at all. I do intend to talk to my daughter because a lot of people are saying my wife may be hurting my daughter behind closed doors, other than the fighting, which we've been trying to work out for a while. Jesus. I will speak with her, and depending on her answers, I'll go from there. The biggest reason I dismissed my daughter's concerns, though, was because it was all about me. Like, during that talk, she never spoke up about her mother hurting her at all. If she'd even told me that she had no reason for it, but she was afraid of her mother, I would have taken that to heart, and we could have figured it out from there. I just don't see my wife shouting and pouring out some coffee as anything remotely close to my mum. Yeah, at this point in this story, I have to agree with that. I'm sorry. There's pouring out coffee and getting annoyed at trivial things, and there's actual abuse, and I don't think these two things line up at all. Anyway, final comment before we get into the update. Tell us more about the mother-in-law. Does she usually intrude on your personal lives like this? Opie says, my mother-in-law and my wife were always close. She said more than once that her mother is her best friend. Intrude? It's hard to say. I don't particularly like her knowing everything about our marriage because it's weird to me. But then I had no relationship to speak of with my mother when she was alive, so I've got no idea if that's actually just me being weird. No, I don't think so. But then again, I can't exactly sit here and say that I wouldn't tell my parents if I was in a long-term relationship, if my wife cheated on me, for example, or I cheated on my wife, I'd have to tell them that. So, yeah, there's being intrusive or there's just knowing key stuff. Now, what I will say is, I hope my parents wouldn't then go and tell my daughter what I'd done or what my partner had done. That's probably a step too far. Anyway, let's get into the update. Now, this was posted just a week ago at the time of recording, 13 months after the original. It's been a while. I'll probably regret posting this as much as I did the first time, though for different reasons. Before I begin, I want to thank all the kind people who reached out with genuine advice and with whom I had lovely conversations. I appreciate you more than I can say. Checking my history, I saw that I never updated after the conversation with my daughter about her situation with my wife. We talked, and it went worse than I expected, but better than most of the comments. She never hit my daughter or threatened her. My daughter did bring up the yelling, and I listened, though she said she was never afraid of her mother, but she started to hate her when she noticed how she treated me, hence the change in appearance and rebelling. She liked that I stood up for her when it came to her new style, because then I was standing up for something. That makes me laugh a bit now, but at the time I was confused. We talked for a long time, and she said she thought maybe she could get over the resentment she had for her mother if she didn't have to see the way she treats me. I didn't much like that at the time, and I admit I argued that I was an adult. You don't have to fight my fights for me. But my daughter then said something like, well, if I don't, who will? And it just kind of stopped me in my tracks, because my only answer, sometimes you have to pick your battles, sounds weak when you pick none of them. I still intended to try to work on my marriage despite the comments. I really hoped to turn things around because of their previous relationship, and frankly how much I still loved my then wife. But then she didn't come home for weeks. I don't know if it was my daughter's needling or the fact that I could tell she was upset at being abandoned by her mother at the first sign of trouble, but one day I eventually reached out and asked my ex-mother-in-law when my wife was going to come home and act like an adult, and was told she was looking into divorce attorneys, and that if I wanted her back, I should really work on getting my daughter to apologize. What on earth is that? It all felt so manipulative, yes, exactly, and I just got so angry. I just hung up and spoke to my own lawyer. After being served, she tried to come back and cried that it was her mental health, but I was still so angry, I just shut her down and told her to leave. Divorce was finalized a while ago. My daughter stays with me most of the time, since her mother moved out of state afterwards, and she wants to go to college in the area when the time comes. But she visits my mother-in-law and speaks to her mother on the phone sometimes. As much as I hate to admit it, Their relationship is improving since the divorce. I don't hate my ex-wife. Even if many, including my daughter, categorize her as abusive, she's the first woman I ever really clicked with in that way, and though I don't love her anymore, probably the last. I don't mind it so much. I have a full life without her around, and a quieter one as well. But anyway, thank you all again for listening, and I'm bracing for the I told you so's. I don't blame you, you did. Wow, that is crazy. I didn't quite expect the comments to be as correct as I suppose it turns out they were, but let's see what the commenters were saying after this update. It does seem obvious that you were being a doormat if your own child viewed herself as needing to be your savior from her mother. Then learning the betrayal made how she felt 10 times more valid. I believe your ex-mother-in-law wanted this outcome and felt similar to your daughter. Hopefully you're doing better for yourself and listening to your daughter more instead of being defensive. Good luck with everything. I'm sorry. I can't agree with this. And I'm going to have to turn my face cam on to say what I want to say. Hiya, it's me, Red. And let me tell you something really quickly. The thing is, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, teenage kids, I think pretty often are going to look at their parents and be like, oh, what, mom, you got to do this. Dad, you got to do this. Like, that's sort of what teenagers do. They think they know it all. They're in that rebellious stage or whatever. And they're sort of like, you know, trying to get involved potentially in their parents' relationship when they see something that might be a little bit wrong, but actually they don't really know the full story. Maybe I'm not like appreciating what a child can see in these situations as much as I should be, but I don't know, like, let the parents work it out. Let them do it. And I get it, like, she was kind of standing up for you, I suppose, or wanted you to do more. Fine. But I do genuinely agree with your point before that, you know, you're an adult and you will deal with this in the way you want to deal with it. Like, there has to be some sort of boundary there between a father and daughter when dealing with your wife. Now, the one thing, again, that I completely disagree with in this comment is the quote, I believe your ex-mother-in-law wanted this outcome and felt similar to your daughter. No, I'm not justifying what your mother-in-law did at all. How is that fair? Oh, I think that you need to stand up for yourself more and stop being such a doormat to my daughter. So because of that, I'm going to tell your daughter, my granddaughter, that my daughter cheated on you. That makes no sense. So I actually think this is a terrible comment. Sorry, because I actually disagree with the majority of it. How are you justifying this idiotic mother-in-law? I don't understand. Anyway, let's get back into OP's response. Okay, OP replies to this comment that I clearly dislike quite strongly by saying, my ex-mother-in-law may have, as in may have wanted you to suffer from this outcome and felt similar to your daughter. But with the trash storm she was constantly starting during the divorce, I doubt it. I think she just wanted to gossip and start drama. Exactly. Predictable for her. From what I hear from my daughter, I don't ask, but she tells anyway, my mother-in-law is broken up about my ex leaving the state. Yeah, I don't know. This woman is crazy. I'm sorry. Like, clearly she just wasn't happy with you. Wanted you to split up. Thought, oh, maybe then I'll get to spend more time with my daughter. No. She immediately leaves. All I can say really is, hold that. Somebody else said, she thought your daughter should apologize? Yeah, that's something else I forgot to mention. As OP said, like, the manipulation here is crazy. Getting your daughter to apologize because you told her that her mum cheated on her dad. Unreal. You'll be so much better off without her. OP replied, I'm fairly certain she wanted my teenage daughter to pretend she didn't even know, which is ridiculous, and regardless of my feelings on the incident, that wasn't going to happen, and I wouldn't want it to. Somebody else commented, your daughter saved all 3 of your lives. What are you talking about? No, how? Your wife was abusive, your daughter was being abused, and so were you. No, I'm sorry. It's not abuse. This is not abuse. I know some of you in the comments will be disagreeing with me on that. It's not abuse, just like losing your temper a little bit. It's just who you are as a person. It's probably not that nice to be around, but it's not abusive. Like, not everyone is like calm the whole time. If you get angry because, oh, there's too much cream in your coffee. Yeah, shock. I've probably done that before. Am I abusive? No, obviously not. Anyway, let's continue on with this silly comment. I'm glad she was adult enough to finally put an end to this madness. I really hope your ex-wife gets serious mental help and your daughter doesn't have lasting effects from it. OP said, from what I know, my ex is finding herself. Good for her. I never even knew she was lost. My daughter is a strong young woman, stronger than I ever was or ever will be. I'm more proud of her than I can possibly explain, even without this situation. She's the best part of my life, and to quote the old sayings, when I count my blessings, I count her twice. OP added some additional info about his ex-mother-in-law and her visits, saying, she is no longer allowed in my house due to some of her actions over the past year, but my daughter is 17 now with her own car, and I won't prevent her from talking with her on the phone or visiting if she wants. She's never expressed a desire not to see her anymore, and I'm not going to force that issue. If she changes her mind, that's no problem for me, but I've been pretty clear that she has no obligation to cut off anyone over me. And then finally, why does OP's ex-mother-in-law actually hate OP? Well, there's a lot to that. She never really liked me exactly. She mostly tolerated me because I was a decent husband, in her words. But she tried to get me to drop the divorce since clearly my ex was having an episode when she brought it up in the first place. Then, when the divorce proceedings started, she insisted my ex should get full custody, despite my daughter and even my ex-wife arguing against it. Then it was division of assets, and she had a problem with anything not handed over to my ex, even ridiculous things. She argued my ex should get both cars. My ex was actually surprisingly reasonable, but it was like her mother wanted me punished for giving up on her. After a lot of screaming when she showed up at my house anytime I was home, I eventually told her that she was no longer welcome, and if she came back, I would call the police to escort her off the property. I think that scared her, and she hasn't been my problem since. Listen guys, as always, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, so let me know what you think in the comments down below, but I just don't really see this as abuse. I think, yeah, like, you have a bit of a scale, don't you, in terms of what abuse is, and I understand it. You know, it's not great how this woman has acted, but to call it like actual abuse, and people saying, oh, I'm actually worried that she's been hitting your daughter without you knowing, like, that obviously wasn't going on. Maybe I'm living in a dream world. Maybe I'm living in a fancy world, guys. You tell me. I just don't think that was ever going on. I think sometimes the people of Reddit, they jump to pretty crazy conclusions because they see stories like this a lot and they live for the drama. And a lot of these stories often do have pretty crazy things that happen, but I don't know. I didn't see it in this one. What can I say about this story, realistically? It was great because it involved a mother-in-law who was just absolutely... can't say that, but no, still can't say. I mean, I'm just looking at the comments. Is anyone saying anything about the abuse here? I don't know. I just don't know. Like, people in the comments are saying, oh, when I was the kid's age, I told my parents they should get a divorce due to all the fighting. And then they said, no, we love each other so much. It's like, at what point do you get a divorce for the benefit of your kids? And when do you stay together? Because, you know, some people are just fiery and they're always going to argue, and that's just their personality. So, like, do you get a divorce just because you're arguing a bit too much? Like, what, you know, at what point do you listen to your kids when you're actually like, well, can you stop arguing? Do you then say, yeah, you're right, we'll get a divorce, or do you actually try and change how you are? I don't know, like, it's a bit of a confusing one. Anyway, I'm rambling. Get your comments in down below. What do you think about this one? As always, very interested to hear your thoughts. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care of yourselves and peace.